I'm so glad that you're here, so glad that you still have capacity to hear people talk. That's amazing. So yeah, find a white index card if you don't have it already. And I am submitting my slides to the summit materials, so you can have all those later if you like. So who in the room is either building a mindfulness program in your organization or wants to? See your hands. And everybody else is just in the room because you've been here all day and you didn't move, and that's okay too. That's great to know. Thank you for being here. My name is Kristen Mabry, and I live and work on Tlingit Ani, known as Juneau, Alaska, where I lead the Human Capital Branch of the NOAA Fisheries Alaska Regional Office. It's also about 45 degrees there today and raining sideways, so it's okay to be here with you in DC. I'm a founding member of the Mindful NOAA Community of Practice, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've been building an organizational culture of mindfulness with a growth mindset. So of all the slides in my deck, the next one could be a little off-putting to some people. So there's a picture of a dead whale on my next slide. If you don't want to look at that, you're welcome to turn the other way just for 30 seconds or so. And I'm clicking, there we go. So in Alaska, I work with some truly talented people who passionately protect our trust species and serve the public. One of our trust species is this critter. Does anybody have any guess what this is? Very good. Physeter macrosopolus. Yeah, so one of the endangered species that we have off the coast in Alaska. This is one of the many amazing things that my coworkers do. This was a necropsy of a whale that was struck by a vessel and died in Lynn Canal, about 30 minutes outside of Juneau. So I've worked for NOAA for about 20 years. Most of those were in the Protected Resources Division, and no lie, this work can be soul-crushing. It can be really hard. One of the people kneeling on the animal with me is a vet, and this is the closest that she had ever been to one of the critters that she had studied for most of her career. And here it was, in this condition. So there's a lot of work that's really heavy. Our work is changing a lot with different interactions with human things happening in territories of animals and all kinds of things. So our work is becoming very urgent. Puts a lot of pressure on us. So I was able to use the tool of mindfulness and my practice of self-awareness and self-regulation to make some really hard choices. And now I support the people who do this kind of work instead of doing this work myself. So in addition to endangered species, my colleagues at NOAA work hard on understanding and communicating things like climate change, natural disasters, subsistence fisheries, all kinds of really complex issues that are getting more complex and more urgent as time moves on. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is a federal government agency under the Department of Commerce, and our reach goes from the surface of the sun to the depths of the ocean floor. We didn't know this, but different employees across NOAA, everywhere from the East Coast out to even American Samoa, were bringing people together in groups, practicing mindfulness and mindful movement, trying to introduce mindfulness into our organization, but we didn't know that about each other. We didn't know it was happening. And so we started getting little wisps of things going on and finding each other and reaching out, hey, how is it going and what you're trying to do, and sharing our struggles and our practices across this large organization. So I'm going to throw around some terms in my presentation today, fixed and growth mindset. There's a lot out there on these. I'm sure that you've already been exposed to these topics. I'm not going to go into what they are in detail. You can look it up or do some reading on your own. But for the purposes of today's presentation, I'm going to talk about fixed mindset being something specific and defined and perhaps limiting, and growth mindset being something bigger with more possibilities and openness. So from a biological perspective, or from a neurological perspective, research suggests that growth mindset is correlated with more gray matter in the part of your brain that is responsible for decision-making and setting goals. That's pretty cool. From a behavioral perspective, growth mindset is often correlated in research with learning and receiving feedback. Less with stewing about what did I do wrong or what bad decision did I make. And another interesting thing in the research they're finding is that it's contextual and situational. So you can be in growth mindset in one area and in fixed mindset in another. And so the practice of mindfulness can help us see, how am I approaching this situation? Am I approaching this from a fixed mindset or from a growth mindset? And that was very instrumental in our story. So at the time, these disparate people in isolated pockets across the United States were mainly operating under a fixed mindset with very limited belief systems. We were being very careful, proceeding with caution in our isolated pockets, as if we had to sort of hold on to our practice and protect it and the sessions that we were leading. We were thinking small and we were keeping things pretty quiet. I wonder if any of you have experienced any feelings like this. Yeah. We must proceed with caution. Anybody felt that in your efforts? I have to do the work of preparing and leading sessions on my own personal time on top of an overwhelming workload. Anybody ever felt that when trying to introduce mindfulness into an organization? What if it's not well received, or worse? What if someone gets triggered or harmed by what we do? Who am I to lead these sessions? Maybe I'm not the right person to do this. Thank you for admitting to having some of these same feelings. On your index card, if you'd like to play along, I encourage you to write a fixed mindset belief that you have about yourself or the organization that you're building, the mindfulness sessions that you're offering. What is a fixed mindset belief that you have about yourself or the organization that you're building? I'm not going to ask you to share this. This is just for you, but I am asking you to write it down if you're willing. I'll give you just a moment. And if you can't come up with something, you can borrow one of mine. There's plenty there for the taking. So after a few months of offering sessions, we started to get quite a bit of interest and started to see some benefits from people attending our sessions. But it still felt really opportunistic, frankly, a little risky, or maybe, just not like quite what it could be. And then I distinctly remember someone in one of our planning sessions said, "Why are we approaching this so differently? Why are we not using the same skills and passion and organization that we would use in a fishery management problem or an organizational budget problem, right? Why are we doing this differently?" So we started thinking about it and realized that, oh yeah, we have this amazing skill set of strategic planning. So how could we bring that into what we're doing to grow our mindfulness organization? With this shift in thinking, in early 2020, we formed a Mindful NOAA Employee Resource Group to support NOAA's people and do this amazing work at our mission while improving workplace culture. That was an important part of our work. All of a sudden, we were about 8 people making mindfulness available to over 14,000 NOAA employees all across the U.S. As we were shifting into a growth mindset, we shifted our paradigm. We traded caution for compassion and connection. When you see others benefiting from what you're doing, you're a little bit less caring about the naysayers or what might happen, right? You're seeing real results in real time. Most of our group was pretty new to leading sessions and didn't have a lot of formal training. And like I said, we were doing all this work on our own time outside of government. So instead of stewing about that or feeling like an imposter or feeling like we didn't have enough training or we didn't have enough time, we simply asked for what we needed. We asked for formal training, for facilitation. And to my knowledge, every ask was met with a yes. The federal government paid for my mindfulness facilitation teacher training. Anybody else get a wow? Can I get a wow or something? Yeah, wow. When we talked about, we really want to do this, but we don't have time, right? We have this amazing, overwhelming workload, and we'd like to be able to do this. We asked to include our Mindful NOAA work in our performance plans as a function of our work. Every single time that I know of, we were told, yeah, get it in your performance plan as part of your job duties. Make it an official record as part of your work. So on the other side of your index card that you've been writing on, I invite you to write a statement that is true, that gives an alternative perspective to your earlier fixed mindset statement that you gave. For example, you're not an imposter, you're in process. Give you a moment to think about a growth mindset statement that gives an alternative perspective to what you wrote earlier. If you're having trouble, just add the word yet. It works for a lot of things. I see pens moving. Great. Was that fairly easy or more difficult to come up with a growth mindset statement? So? Okay. So it can be difficult to make the shift. I'm going to talk about how do we make the shift from fixed to growth mindset? How can practicing mindfulness help us make that shift? And what else changes when you start to make that shift? So for us, we're finding that growth mindset is contagious and it is changing our workplace culture. Specifically, there are 5 characteristics of our work that have really helped us shift into a growth mindset and help keep us moving forward. Why sunflowers? I don't know. They were pretty and I just like looking at them. And so these characteristics, every time we start to shift and find ourselves thinking more in the fixed mindset arena, these characteristics of our work bring us back and move us forward and keep us shifting into growth mindset. So first and foremost, we start with and always come back to being in service. What business need are we meeting? What humanity need are we meeting? As I mentioned earlier, NOAA is a service organization serving the public and our trust resources, so it was really easy for us to focus on serving our colleagues. And this is not so much mindfulness for mindfulness' sake. This is more about asking our employees, hey, what do you need to help do this amazing work that you do every day? So NOAA and the federal government ask those questions. What do you need? What's going on? We have incredibly passionate, dedicated colleagues at NOAA. Many of them are lifers. They come to NOAA and work for NOAA their entire career because they're really dedicated to the people that they serve, the trust species that they're working on. They stay there a long time. And this kind of work ethic can either be helpful or frankly can be unhelpful. So when NOAA and the federal government conducted surveys, they came up with some key issues and reported out that employees were facing this excessive workload with frequent turnaround taskings. We get congressionals where you have to come up with data and supporting information due by the end of the day to your representative. Really quick stuff. There's a lot of uncertainty, of course, a lack of flexibility, and the inability to take time off even though they had earned it. Even though their leave balances showed hundreds of hours, they felt like they weren't able to take that leave. And that's a problem. Our work is changing as climate changes, as we have more protected resources interactions, as subsistence demands change, and now we're completely in a hybrid work environment, which we did not know how to do. We had to figure out. And all of this has led to a substantial amount of burnout. And as you can see on the right side, 76% of respondents to one survey said burnout has had a significant effect on my emotional well-being. And over half of the people that responded to the survey said they had considered seeking a new position or leaving NOAA, specifically because of burnout. These are lifers. These are people who, had dedicated their whole academic and then federal career to working in this space. So at the same time, we began asking our community of practice participants, hey, how is this working for you? We know what you need. Is this meeting that need? And without putting all the numbers up, our Mindful NOAA community of practice participants reported big increases in self-awareness and self-management, huge increases in compassion and the ability to focus at work, the ability to come up with creative solutions to these problems. Their overall well-being increased, and they reported higher levels of appreciation for their colleagues, for the world around them, for their work, and a higher sense of community. They reported lower levels of stress and anxiety and loneliness, which we know is an epidemic as well. And one of many quotes from one of our surveys, a participant in our session said that participating in Mindful NOAA sessions allowed me to feel at peace with ever-changing work demands and working with many personalities. That feeling of peace, in turn, gives me the feeling of power in terms of accepting the situation as it is. And that power gives me the ability to be more effective in solving the work problems at hand. As a result, it advances NOAA's mission in a positive direction through more productive work and solutions. This is what culture change looks like, starting at the individual level. So if you want to integrate mindfulness into your organization, you got to offer some sessions, right? You got to do some mindfulness and events. So at NOAA, our culture is all about science, service, and stewardship. We have a high degree of commitment to scientific integrity. Anybody else work with scientists in the room? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So if I'm talking to my colleagues, I, get questions on significance and sample size and confidence intervals. So when we offer practices and educational sessions, we often present some of the evidence-based research, which is readily available, right? There's thousands of studies out there now. And we use published models to integrate the practice of mindfulness into leadership or well-being or the topic at hand so that our participants feel more comfortable with the information and more comfortable in participating in mindfulness. Models like this one. Who's familiar with the Surgeon General's workplace well-being model? Yeah, Alex knows a little bit about that. Yeah. So these different components of this model, if you don't know it, look it up. It is fantastic and one of the best things I've seen in federal government in a long time. There have been several good reports come out of the Surgeon General's office lately. So the 5 components of protection from harm, connection and community, work-life harmony, mattering at work, and opportunity for growth. Can you think about how does mindfulness practice with openness, curiosity, awareness in the present moment, how it would enhance and support our work in those components? Does that make sense to you? How that's an easy way for someone to walk into the practice of mindfulness when they see this framework. We started in the Alaska region with protection from harm, and I can tell you that mindfulness has been an amazing tool to share with people in that arena. And models like Goleman's emotional intelligence model, we've heard a lot about emotional intelligence this week, and mindfulness itself is steeped in self-awareness, right? A huge part of our practice. And of course, then self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. When we present a model like this and how it relates to leadership or overall well-being or communication or meeting our goals or whatever it is, it's so natural and so easy to integrate mindfulness practices into the presentation of this model that our folks are ready to absorb it and to soak it in and to try it. And then they can go read the book about it if they want more. But you don't change culture through emails and memos, or if you know how to do that, let me know. Give me that email. You change it through relationships, one conversation at a time. That's how culture changes. And we have had many, many conversations. So we were talking about our session. So Mindful NOAA officially formed in 2020. So here's just a rundown of the number of sessions and participants that we've had over the past few years. Lots of conversations, lots of sessions. But what you don't see in these numbers is the laughter, the tears, the stories, the patience and respect and trust, and the pauses where we came together and just held space for each other. We were learning a new way to work together, and it was incredibly powerful. I remember an employee sharing about using a mindfulness practice that they learned in our sessions before and after a medical procedure and how much that helped them. I remember employees talking about using what they had learned in our mindfulness sessions at home with their family because this was during mandatory telework as part of the COVID pandemic. And these people were trying to work at home and homeschool their children at the same time. Anybody was in that situation? Or you blocked that part out, right? It was so hard. So these mindfulness practices were directly relatable and easy for them to do at home as well. We started sharing these challenges with each other, and we found a place where not only were we accepted as we are and as we came, but we found that we were able to accept each other as well. So this is what culture change looks like at the relationship level. Many conversations. Crucial to changing our culture was finding champions. So once we started openly talking about what we were doing and not apologizing, oh, I'm going to lead a mindfulness session, I hope that's okay. Once we started talking about it, we quickly found champions in our organization, including leaders in key positions who either already were mindfulness practitioners or some of their employees had gone to our sessions and they're hearing about it, or maybe they went to the session themselves and they had their own results. They quickly learned to appreciate the benefits from joining our sessions. So this was from our virtual open house last year, and Dr. Rick Spinrad, the Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmospheres, actually gave our opening remarks, singing the praises of Mindful NOAA in our open house. We also found champions in leadership who were willing to house our program as it grew, and that provided stability and recognition and name recognition for our program as it began to grow even more, having a place to reside and to be. Okay, I know this looks like a terribly boring slide, but this is what change looks like in the federal government. This is one of the most exciting things in my entire career on the screen right now. This summer, NOAA issued its Wellness at Work policy, which specifically names mindful NOAA sessions and educational events as activities that federal government employees can participate in during their working hours. The federal government said you can meditate on the clock. Yeah. Thank you. This is what organizational change looks like, the U.S. government leadership singing the praises of a mindfulness practice. We all cheered all over the U.S. when this came out. In addition to finding champions, we also had to build some key partnerships to change culture. So NOAA employees have a lot of wellness, educational, professional development type opportunities available to them, but many of them don't even know what's available to them. So our planning team, in an effort to embed ourselves into culture, offered to lead introductory mindfulness sessions and answer questions about mindfulness with our partners here as they were offering like their annual meetings, the trainings that they were doing, the programs that they were kicking off. For example, the Office of Human Capital Services does a course called Management Skills for New Supervisors. So these are people who have just been promoted into supervision, or maybe they just joined NOAA as supervisors. We were able to introduce mindfulness to them as they're becoming a supervisor. Here's these tools to help you navigate the workplace, and maybe you even share them with your team. We were able to integrate into onboarding programs. You heard about that earlier this afternoon, and our workplace advocacy program, introducing tools of mindfulness for those who participate and help people, impacted persons with sexual assault and sexual harassment. So many applications. And this integration became beneficial to everyone. It didn't take much time at all before these partners started coming to us and saying, hey, can you give another presentation? Can you come and do a practice session for us? We're going to have this meeting. So because we were constantly reaching new audiences with Mindful NOAA, we were able to share about the services that these partners were providing as well. And so it became a win-win for everyone, elevating each other's messages. This is what change looks like at the organizational level. So on your paper, if you want, what champions or partnerships could you build that would enhance the program that you're building in your organization? What key champions, who can you think of that if you got that person on your side, you might end up with a wellness policy that names your program, or partnerships where you could work with each other and support each other's programming to your employees, to your demographic. And finally, if you're going to change culture, you have to empower growth. And we did that in a couple different ways. Has anybody read James Clear, Atomic Habits? Great read. Yes. So if you make behaviors easy to do and accessible, then they become habits, right? So it was very important to us to use the tools that our employees had easy access to make joining a mindful session super easy and readily available to them, so that they could, tell other people about joining, and so that they could easily integrate it into their day. So the Department of Commerce does all things Google. So we made a Google intranet site, and you can see the menu here with all of our programming, our recorded practice sessions, lots of resources to articles and things that would come up in the presentations that we would do. We have a blog called Mindful Musings. Every Friday, one of us would write a blog and put up for people to read. We have a Google Calendar that has links to our sessions. So on this week, it looks like we had 5 sessions. Those are just links. You just click it and join. You don't have to register. You don't have to do anything. You just click and join the link. And all of our virtual meetings are held in Google Meet, which all of NOAA has access to. So there's no problem with getting into the session or making it cumbersome or anything like that. We have a Mindful NOAA email address where one of our facilitators who's leading the session for that day sends out an invitation email. And we now have over 1,000 people on that email list that receive Monday through Friday an invitation to a mindfulness session with a description of what's going to happen and usually a link to an article about that topic as well. Over 1,000 folks interested in coming to our sessions. Again, if you make behaviors easy to do and accessible, they readily become habits and you can empower growth. So much so that the doors are wide open. Our growth has been phenomenal, and one of the most impactful things that happened is we were able to have a program manager detail position. That is, a NOAA employee was able to step outside their normal work and be a program manager for Mindful NOAA for over an entire year, full time. The growth that our program saw in that year was astounding and indescribable, even such that we were able to put together a pitch for direct bill program funding, which we received. If we go back to work on Monday, we'll be funded for a second year in the running, which has enabled us to develop partnerships with other government programs, including the EPA. These are joint educational programs for people that don't necessarily want to be facilitators, but just want to deepen their practice. High-quality train-the-trainer programs for our new facilitators, and for the first time, an in-person workshop and continuing education for our Mindful NOAA team. I had been working with the planning team for over 3 years, all these people, and we were finally able to meet in person this summer at a mindfulness retreat that was fully funded. This is what sustainable culture change looks like at the organizational level, supporting individuals and teams to drive culture forward. That was an incredible week. So we were going in multiple orientations. I've talked about individuals, relationships, teams, organization, but we were also growing in sustainability and adaptability, with energy, with time, with budget. But what we were really growing in an organization of over 14,000 employees is what I consider to be the highest order of sustainable human connection. What is that? What's been the theme this week? What are we building? We're building community. A community is a garden in which to grow people, and I guess we could add relationships, teams, organizations, and culture. I've witnessed people step forward and talk about the intergenerational trauma that they're dealing with, the workplace bias that they're fighting against, the toxic workplaces that they're coming up against. This community of practice has enabled people to step up and ask for what they need. One of our members said, whether we are experiencing difficulty or joy, we show up for and with each other in community. And I think that's pretty special. This is what culture change looks like when you're building community. This is some of us meeting for the first time in person, but already knowing and caring for each other, because community transcends our notion of individuals, teams, and organizations. It unites hearts, minds, and spirits. So I'm out of time. I would ask you on your card, what is one way you can build community in your organization? Thank you so much.
Okay.